Okay, I need to bind my transmitter to the receiver. One thing I did before I'm going to do that is I went in, got a new model, and I already set the name for it. But if you go to your setup list and go to model type, just make sure it's on helicopter. Here you can enter in the model name. Alright, and then just go to your swash type. Make sure you set it to 120 degrees CCPM. Alright, now I'm just going to go ahead and turn this off and get my receiver ready to bind to the transmitter. Okay, I went ahead and connected all the wires to my AR6200 receiver. And starting from the side, now right here you can see I got the bind plug. Now the bind plug, you have to stick this in the end. Now it also is the same spot that the BEC right here would plug into. So because you can't plug the BEC in there because you have to plug the bind plug in, you can actually plug the BEC in anywhere except where you need to put the bind plug. So what I did was, I don't have my gyro hooked up right yet. For the rudder channel, I've got my actual tail servo plugged directly into the receiver, because this way I can center my servo. And then I've taken my BEC and plugged that into the gyro gain. So that way I can power up my receiver, bind the transmitter to the receiver, and then go ahead and then I'll move this around, center my servos, get the servo horns on, and keep going. Okay, transmitter's off. Now I'm going to go ahead and plug the helicopter in. I'm just using a small battery for this. Okay, and you can see the lights start flashing on both the receiver as well as the little satellite receiver. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the trainer switch and then turn this on. You'll hear this start beeping, and you'll actually see those go solid red, or solid orange. Alright, now go ahead, when those go solid green, go ahead and let off the switch, remove your bind plug, and now real quickly, I'm going to center my tail servo. Well, actually the tail servo is centered right now, but all I want to do is I want to install my tail servo arm. And there we go. That way I know my tail servo is centered, and now I can go ahead and hook up the gyro. So I'm going to go unplug everything, mount my gyro real quick, and then I'll come back. Okay, with the transmitter and receiver bound to each other, I went ahead and mounted the receiver back here, and I've got a little satellite receiver over here on this side. I've got gyro mounted up top. You can see here, this is the wire that I had originally plugged into my receiver. Now it's going into the gyro where it belongs. Got the wire from the gyro coming down. I still got to clean up the wire in here a little bit, but just for now, aid in setting it up, I just kind of zip tied it off to the side. Now, I've already got my motor installed, and it's not the original motor I was going to use. It's one of my eSmart motors. The original motor I was going to use didn't work, so I ended up putting this on. Works great. Now, sometimes, depending on the size of the motor, you can slip it in through this back here. Or, just to make your life easier, you can just go ahead and take off the front battery tray. I ended up taking the tray off, and then I installed the motor. And when you install the motor, you are going to want to have the main gear in so that you can set your gear mesh. And you don't actually have to install everything. Just go ahead, slip the main gear down through there with the main shaft, and then you can go ahead, set the gear mesh for your main motor. And after it's all tightened down, there you go, you can take it back out, and your motor's mounted. So now that I got all this stuff roughly mounted, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and start setting up the servos, make sure I get these centered, install my linkages, and then keep going up. Okay, the first step, I need to make sure you get all your servos operating in the proper direction. Now, this may be easier for you to actually put all the linkages on and connect, put the main shaft down in there and connect it up to the swash plate. So that way you can visibly see what your servos are making your swash plate do. So now for myself, though, I found that what I had to do was, I got, again, Futaba 9252 servos. What I had to do was I had to change my swash mix in here, and to change the swash mix for the elevator from positive 60 to negative 60. Then I had to go into my reversing menu and change and reverse my pitch servo. And that makes everything for me operate in the proper direction. So now what I can do is I can go ahead and switch my transmitter into idle up, put my throttle stick at mid stick, and this is where I can go ahead and position my servo arms on the servos. Now, one of the things about these servo horns here is, now for myself, you can see here, I've got the balls, and they come, I've got them screwed onto the face of the servo arm. And the reason being is when I had these screwed on the back, I'd find that the linkage here would kind of hit on my bell crank. So I didn't want that, so I have the balls installed out. And the other thing is, it's very important that you go through, make sure these links are the same length, as well as the two that are used for the bell crank down here for your elevator servo. So you're going to need to make sure that, again, they have to be identical lengths, so you need a set of digital calipers, and follow the lengths outlined in the T-Rex 600 manual. And as long as you do that, when you go ahead and you mount this on there, if you put one linkage on, the other one should just kind of fall right on top. It shouldn't want to push it or pull it. It should just kind of go right on top. So once you're sure you've got your servo arm as close to 90 degrees to the servo as you can, go ahead and install it on there. And if it's not perfectly 90, what you can do is you can go into your transmitter to the sub-trim menu, and this you can actually adjust the servo arm. So you just go down and select whatever servo you need to adjust, and adjust the servo arm till you got it nice and 90 degrees to your servo. And then what I'm going to do is go ahead and I'm going to install my main gear, my main shaft, and then I'm going to go ahead and put my swash plate on and connect the links from my bell cranks to my swash plate. Okay, I've got the main gear and the main shaft installed, got the swash plate slid down over it. You can see I've got the links all coming up to it. Now I just wanted to show you real quickly this thing. This is a swash plate leveling tool, and what this does, you can see here it's got the 3 little feet. Well, these 3 feet rest on the 3 parts of the swash plate where the links connect. So you slide this down over top. If the swash plate is even the slightest bit out of level, the links aren't going to touch. Well, the feet aren't going to touch the swash plate. So if any of these is not touching, just adjust the link until it does touch, and then you'll know that your swash plate is perfectly level. So now I'm going to go ahead and install the rest of the rotor head and just keep going up. Okay, so I've got the rotor head on, got the blades on, and for good measure stuck the canopy on. So this link and the one on the opposite side, they need to be the exact same length, as well as this one and this one. So again, follow the lengths outlined in the T-Rex 600 manual. Make sure you use some digital calipers. And as long as you do that, you're actually going to be really, really close to being finished with setup. After you make sure all these links are, the same as each other, these two up here, I did have to extend these two out quite a bit. But again, following the links in the T-Rex 600 manual. After I did all that, put my pitch gauge on, and found that on both of them, really, I only needed to turn in one full turn to get 0 degrees at mid-stick and idle up. And then I just checked for my overall pitch range, and I've got mine set for about 10 degrees pitch. I've heard of people running 12 degrees max pitch on theirs. I've got slightly underpowered motor, so I don't need to have that much pitch on mine. But so really, the only thing left is to take it outside, check the tracking of the blades, double check everything, and take it out for a quick test flight.